Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with a tough dilemma or a tough question that has been around hip hop for probably the last 20 years or so. Two legendary labels from the New Orleans, Louisiana area, full of rappers and full of artists that changed hip hop forever, that changed music and movies and just changed the whole culture together as a whole. And it's difficult to determine who had the bigger impact. But my question to you is, who had the bigger impact between Cash Money Records and No Limit Records? Now, very thought-provoking question, but it's worth discussing and exploring. So these, like I said, these two legendary labels, both were founded in 1991. Now they became relevant a little bit later down the road, of course, because they had to start from the ground up. But as far as setting the groundwork or setting down the foundation, I believe No Limit did that with Master P and what he did. Just being a astute businessman and going out to California to get his name out there, to ingratiate himself with the Bay and bring the music or bring the culture of New Orleans to California and vice versa. Being able to get the name out there, because we know in the South, hip hop really wasn't in the South back then. You had to go to the coast. Master P was one of those forefathers that actually helped expand hip hop out to different regions from that Louisiana area, and eventually it made its way to Atlanta, Tennessee, Texas, and all these different places. But No Limit did set that groundwork with Master P and what he did, going out to the Bay and reaching out to legends and things like that, and just getting his name out there and making people aware of what was going on in New Orleans. But Cash Money, I think, took it to the next level as far as being able to be more commercially successful, getting their names out there, being able to branch to different things in different venues. Now, when I compare Cash Money to No Limit, I'm talking about Cash Money pre Nicki Minaj, Drake, and all the stuff. That's Young Money. I'm just talking about Cash Money, the Hot Boys, Big Timers, that whole group that they had back from probably 91 all the way to the early, before Lil Wayne's solo project in 2006, before the Carter One. So everything pre Carter One all the way to its inception. So, but this discussion, I think it has to be analyzed from totality. So when you think about the hits, the fashion, the innovation, and success from all the artists. So I'm gonna break it down. So New Orleans, you have No Limit, who their primary players were Master P, you had Mystical, and you had C Murder. They did have Snoop Dogg for a couple of albums, but for this discussion, I'm not really including Snoop Dogg in this. He's a part of it, but he only had a few albums and he was with them a few years until he got back on his feet. But No Limit's impact was massive with the hits of Make 'Em Say and the hits that Mystical had. I remember the Make 'Em Say album or a song, everybody was singing that, and this was probably late 90s classic hit. You remember the video of them being in the gym and them wearing the basketball equipment, and they have the tank in there because that's their logo, the tank. And both the groups, it should be noted that both the groups were militant in some respects, because Cash Money, I always talk about, we're an army, but yet a navy. And then No Limit had the tank for their representation, for their logo. So they had that in common as well. But their impact as far as music goes, they set that groundwork for Cash Money to come back behind and imitate that same success. But of course, Cash Money took it to the next level. But they weren't really known. No Limit wasn't really known for fashion. Their albums, they used to wear suits, or when they was in their movies, they would wear suits and things like that. They were more buttoned up. They did wear casual clothes, and they had their own clothing line, I believe. But we know Cash Money had the fashion trends, whether it's the bandanas on the head, bandanas on the neck, the big baggy white t-shirts, the Jabot jeans. Can't forget the Jabot jeans. We used to always, in middle school, we would do anything for a pair of Jabot jeans back then. Then they had the classic Reeboks, which, was a style back then. So they had the fashion down pat. But Master P, I think, had the business mindset that Cash Money didn't have, even though they have, Baby and Slim, who very good businessmen. But I think Master P had that college education, and he had more experience with things because he was a little bit older, I believe. But Master P, he was able to control his own destiny and his own rights for the most part. And I talked about this on the previous Inside the Scope, but he was able to own his rights for the most. I think he owned 85% of his rights as far as Priority Records goes when he had his first deal, and he was able to own his own distribution and own his own marketing. So when you saw those No Limit covers with the holographic covers, that was all Master P's doing because of the business decisions that he made. That wasn't the label, that was Master P himself marketing his own things. So he did a tremendous job of being able to think outside the box, to market things, to get people to go out and buy those albums. Because back then, you had to physically go to the store and get those albums. So you had to do a little bit more marketing to get people out of the stores. Now, of course, it doesn't take much for someone to click a button on your phone or on your TV or a laptop or whatever. But back then, you had to get butts out of seats. So to do that, you had to get this marketing. He had that excellent marketing strategy. But Cash Money did have strategies as well, just from just the hot music and the album covers that they had as well, with obviously fake backgrounds of the 400 Degrees and Lil Wayne with the Block is Hot and all these different album covers that I used to like back in the day because they were outside of the box from what hip hop typically was. But Master P also taught ownership and freedom, and I think that's why he had like the movies that he had, the movie success with I Got the Hookup and I'm About It. And he also incorporated his own music inside of that. Now, Cash Money did have one movie, which was Baller Blocking. Most people probably haven't seen it, but it was less than an hour. Back then, when I used to watch it, it seemed longer, but it was only about 50 some minutes. And it's very difficult to find now. But I think it was only on tape. It never made it to CD or anything. That's how old it was. But that movie, like I said, it didn't compare anything to Master P's movies. I give Master P the edge on who would have more impact in hip hop, just for the simple fact of what he taught education wise, because it's very close as far as the artists put together. Because, I'll talk about Cash Money here in a little bit, but Cash Money, they had all of the conspicuous consumption that you can say. So they was flaunting riches and fashion and all, like I said, I talked about the Jabot jeans and Reeboks, and they were just more commercial, and they had these great hits that came anthems, whether, Back That Thing Up or Juvenile's High, different songs like that. And they just had a lot of different players, but they had Juvenile, BG, Lil Wayne, and Big Timers for the most part that were integral inside of what they're trying to do. And I do believe their artists were better than Cash. Cash Money's artists were a little bit better than No Limits, but No Limit just had a different mindset because of Master P and what he was able to do and accomplish behind the scenes, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well. So that's very important for the success and for the momentum that hip hop was starting to get, because back when they were putting out these albums and things, it wasn't a big market for hip hop like it is now. It didn't have much crossover value. Master P, I think he set the foundation for that movement to start. Cash Money did push it to the next level, however, but Juvenile, he was one of the most underrated rappers in the South because, like I said, it wasn't a market for hip hop artists back then. Everything was, pop, back then, and rock and things like that got more, because hip hop was in its younger stages. It was only about 30 something years old, I believe, to that point. So it didn't get the just due that it needed, and it was just starting to catch steam soon as Master P went out to California and came back and started marketing himself, and Cash Money was able to extend that. But Lil Wayne, what he's done post this era I'm talking about, was probably the biggest accomplishment that anybody had commercially. Just with the success of the Carter series and what he was able to do with different ventures with ESPN, and he has his own marketing firm now. So there's a lot of, not marketing firm, but his own sports agency, and how he was able to branch and get Nicki Minaj and Drake and create the biggest stars that we had ever seen in hip hop. So Lil Wayne's accomplishments probably was the biggest commercially, but this was post the era I'm talking about, of the Cash Money No Limit Records era. But it was just great for hip hop to see New Orleans, do what they did. They haven't had a lot of stars since then, but they done enough for hip hop. If they don't do anything else, they've done enough for hip hop as a whole. So tell me in the comments, who do you think had the bigger impact in hip hop? No Limit Records or Cash Money Records? So until next time, I'll see you next time.